People think in ways that are routine, that are part of standard operating procedures. They are focused on the analytics, and they don't necessarily pause at the very beginning to think about whether they framed the problem well. So trying to understand from the human's perspective what the problems are, what the issues are, what needs improvement, what problems they are encountering that a design challenge could address in a creative, innovative way. That, in a nutshell, for me, is what design thinking is. It's an invitation to think differently, problem solve differently, and certainly an invitation to be much more creative and innovative in that thinking process. Part of design thinking is to help people be visual problem solvers. If you are in a team and somebody's taking notes, or the information is going into the computer, you're not sure that everybody is understanding and framing the problem in the same way. They're using the same words, but they may have different meanings and interpretation.
It would be easy to just write things on the board, but using a sticky note helps to organize your own thoughts. You write one thought on one sticky note and put it up on a board. It lets everybody else see it, and it also helps you to organize it, to move it, to think about things a different way. It's just one thought. Don't try and think too much about it, just keep it really simple.
Sticky notes are also a way to do shorthand. You know, you don't have to worry about pages and pages of text. You can get shorthand statements about feedback, for example. What are the key themes, key issues that people in this interview process found important, and that can get flagged. And it's much easier to work with data than that are laid out in that simplified visual format so that the group can very quickly move on and not get bogged down.
One of the main things I got out of the class was just how to think in a more open-minded way. Usually in my time in the Navy, we have been given a way to think. We have been given specific guidelines, given specific regulations and rules to follow, and these were always kind of considered constraints. Whereas in this class, we kind of took the perspective of forget about all those constraints, forget about everything you've been told. Now let's look at it from a brand new blank sheet of paper, brand new open slate, and let's take it from there. If we were going to design it from that point, what should it look like?
So design thinking spends a great deal of time getting input from users, from customers, from people who are in the problem space.
We encourage feedback as much as possible. No idea is a bad idea unless it's unspoken. So you need to say it, you need to speak up.
Design thinking actually came out of the Stanford engineering department, mechanical engineering actually. It was clear to the engineers at the time that they were very, very good at being very analytical, but they needed some help in being creative and innovative, the front end of the analytics. And so gradually over time, they began to experiment with different ways of teaching their engineers, and eventually others on campus, how to emphasize the human in the loop of the problem-solving process, because they were being forgotten. The customer sometimes did not have a voice, and the focus was more on the analytical aspects of design as opposed to the human aspects of design. So David Kelly, who began with others at the Stanford Design School, started focusing on this approach to problem solving that eventually is now catching on not only in universities throughout the United States, but throughout the world.
One of the big things going on in the Defense Analysis Department is design thinking. We work closely with Stanford University and are inspired very much by the example they've set in various areas of endeavor. We, however, are the first ones to apply this kind of design thinking to the business of military and security affairs. In military affairs, the calculations are not simply about the issues of how much force and how much weaponry to deploy somewhere, but rather a larger question about how to organize an operation, what kind of alliance structure to pursue, what sort of information strategy to approach the American people, the international community, our allies, and even our adversaries, about why we are engaging in the actions we're undertaking. So design thinking really is a very holistic approach to strategy. It's nested in the notion of there being a need to consider many different alternatives rather than to fix on one approach, and to allow over time the best elements of each of these alternatives to come together and create the most effective strategy. The Chief of Naval Operations has become interested in this subject and has talked about setting up a design thinking cell. He's also encouraging improvement overall in strategic thought, and I think this can only help the design thinking initiative. In the Army at Fort Leavenworth, there is a campaign design cell at work, and we are coordinating with them. And since we do a great deal of work in our Defense Analysis Department with the Special Operations community, we're working with the unconventional warriors at Fort Bragg, developing a design thinking initiative. I'm also pleased to note that a number of our allies in the war against terrorism have seen that design alternatives and this kind of thinking can be very productive in their counterterrorism initiatives. And so we're working with a range of our allies as well. When I think about the great enthusiasm for design thinking at the Naval Postgraduate School, the first person I think of is Professor Nancy Roberts, herself a doctorate from Stanford University, and someone who's been involved in design thinking for many years from a management and organization perspective. In our Defense Analysis Department, she's taken a lot of these ideas into the classroom in courses with titles like Wicked Problems, and has really stimulated a high level of interest across the students that attend here at NPS, but also among many of the faculty. She has also been a great ambassador for interest in this subject with the Special Operations Command, with the Chief of Staff of the Army, and indeed in different corridors in the Pentagon as well.
The bottom line for me is that most of faculty that I've talked to, and the students as well, recognize that there has to be a way to get us beyond where we are right now. And it can't be that incremental decision making. It can't be same old, same old. It has to be something that really pushes the edge of that envelope to get us into our future. All signals that I've been getting is, please keep this going forward. Let's do more. Students are extremely interested in having this introduced in some capacity to their coursework. The Naval Postgraduate School could be the center of creative and innovative problem solving for the military.